look at some of the history of this. Where does it come from? It's important to understand the whole idea of portfolio management originates in the financial services sector, stocks and shares. Harry Markowitz won the Nobel Prize, I think in the 50s, for coming up with the idea of managing your stocks and shares as a portfolio. And the key point there, what Markowitz identified, and this is a lot of maths that underpins this stuff, but the idea is that when you invest in a share, you don't look at just the return, you look at the risk of that share or stock. And then the same with your portfolio as a whole. You should look not just at the risk-return profile of individual stocks and shares, but the risk and return profile of the portfolio as a whole, because you can diversify away risk. Some risk can be diversified away, and so you should choose your portfolio to optimize your returns or to minimize your risk. And there is a sweet point, or what's called the efficient frontier, where you can get the greatest return for a given level of risk. And so I say Markowitz won the Nobel Prize for that. What I think is important to hang on to is this idea of managing risk and return. It's not just about return, it's not just about benefits or the cost-benefit ratio. It's very much about the relationship between the return, the strategic bang, and the risk associated with achieving that. And the point about it being an active process, and it's about risk and return at a collective level as well as at an individual project or program level. That idea then kind of spread into the Boston Consulting Group's, which is Harvard, portfolio planning model, and I'm going to give an example of that later on. What they were doing, they were dealing with conglomerates. So these are companies that actually own other companies. And the idea is that you should manage your collection of collection of companies that you own actively. You don't intervene in the companies, but they'd say, for example, company X, we expect you to deliver a 20% return. If you don't deliver the 20% return, we're not going to intervene to get the 20%, we're just going to sell you. And so they manage their collection of projects of their companies to optimize the return. It's not very popular these days, but that was a kind of an application of the concept. It came into the world of IT in around about the early 80s. Warren McFarlane was one of the early proponents. And a lot of the work, as you'll see, a lot of the work that's been done in the project management space, in portfolio management, originates in the world of IT. A lot of the examples in management of portfolios come from the world of IT. So we'll explore that. Bob Cooper, I'll mention Bob Cooper quite a lot. Professor Bob Cooper from Canada has written a lot about the application of portfolio management to new product development. I actually attended one of Bob Cooper's courses at Cranfield University a few years ago, thinking that maybe 10% of what he was talking about would be relevant, but I wanted to hear what he had to say. Actually, I was working in IT and IT projects and programs. 90 to 95% of what he said was relevant to the world of IT. But just because he was talking about new products, the same principles about selecting your portfolio, balancing your portfolio, prioritizing your portfolio, and managing your portfolio applied to the world that I was operating in from new product development. So OGC, the Office of Government Commerce in the UK, published some guidance in 2004. 2006, the PMI published their standard for portfolio management, the first edition, and then let's say 2011 MOP. So what we see is coming from the world of financial securities, this idea of managing risk and return, coming into the world of IT, about managing the IT portfolio. Of course, the IT portfolio isn't just projects and programs; it's the legacy spend as well. So managing that whole beast to optimize the greatest business impact into new product development and projects and programs, into MOP. So that's the kind of background, and I think it helps understand this whole concept of risk and return. And that's the important thing. And what I've got, this is my desk back in the UK, in my home, and you'll see here I reached behind me and I pulled a few of the books off my bookshelf. And I suppose the keys here are, you'll notice the words, if I press the right button, IT portfolio management, strategic IT portfolio management, IT portfolio management. And someone, I think when we wrote MOP, someone said, a lot of your examples are IT, Steve. And I said, well, you know, go onto Amazon and plug in IT portfolio management and see how many hits you get, and then plug in portfolio management, and you'll be amazed. By far, probably 80% of the books that have been written on portfolio management are IT portfolio management. And there's Bob Cooper's book, Portfolio Management for New Products, or one of Bob Cooper's books. Bob Cooper is a writing machine. He publishes a huge amount of stuff, and I would encourage you, if you can get hold of some of Bob Cooper's white papers, or pretty good stuff. The other point I'm trying to highlight here is we've got the words here, project portfolio management, project portfolio management, project portfolio management. You know, people say, well, shouldn't it be project and program portfolio management? Well, it's just too long. And that title, project portfolio management, has kind of stuck. So, but we're not excluding programs. This is very much about anything that we engage in, any initiatives that we engage in to achieve our strategic objectives, whether we manage them as projects, programs, or using some other framework. There's a book that I'll highlight. I'll refer to the author. This is Optimizing Corporate Portfolio Management. So this is a private sector book. It's about the story of American Express, written by a guy called Anand Sanwal. And Anand had a lot of success with American Express. They won lots of awards, and so I've got some good insights, hopefully, that you'll enjoy from Anand. And there's a book there called, another book, Project Portfolio Management. That was sponsored by the PMI, I think back in 2009. The interesting thing about that book is, or why I'm mentioning it, is it was, there were 10 authors. I was the only non-American, non-private sector guide. So we had 9 private sector American authors from big corporates, big major companies in the States. So it's a kind of hot topic, growing literature, gives you an idea of the stuff that's out there.